My first post and some backstory. Hello again, people of Reddit. There were a lot of comments and many questions were asked. One in particular that I found very interesting and even showed my daughters was what would have been my plan if my son won or something similar, and my daughters have instructed me to quote the great Kanye. I guess we'll never know. I'm not sure if that's the saying or stuff, but I got that out of the way now. We all thought it would be funny to say that, so I'm including it. All right, now to the actual situation. There were a lot of you guys who recommended I reach out to my son, so I did. Yesterday, we agreed that I would go over to his apartment. I told my daughters and the ex that I would be going today to their brother's place, and I asked the ex if she wanted me to grab some small things that she left over there. That just reminds me. Some of you people are creepy and disgusting. You know who you are and what I'm talking about. I went over to his place at 8 in the morning so we could get it out of the way as soon as we could. He shook my hand, but he kept his gaze low. His injuries seemed to be fine and were healing up nicely. He led me into his apartment, and it was pretty messy. There were a lot of trash bags piled up, and some of the walls had little dents in them. I mention this because I mentioned that I saw scrap marks on his hands earlier. We made small talk first, and then I brought up the idea of attending therapy, but he shot me down. I told him that we needed to talk about his ex and his actions. He said, "I'm guessing she told you everything, right?" I told him yes, and asked him for the entire truth. It pretty much went like this. He lost his job 8 months ago after a huge layoff and was struggling with the bills, so his ex had to cover for him. He felt like a loser compared to her because of it, couldn't find a job, and when she asked him about it, he snapped at her for trying to help him. That's pretty much how it started. After that, he just found it easy to smack her every time he felt less than her, or if she made him look bad. I asked him a lot of questions, some vague, some detailed, but for the most part, it confirmed every story his ex had told us. So she wasn't lying to us. I told him that I was sorry I didn't hear him out at first, but that it was probably for the better that I didn't know the pathetic reasons he had for doing what he did. He did not apologize back or show any signs that he was remorseful for what he did. We continued to talk about it, and things got very heated. He kept on making excuses for himself and trying to justify what he did. I told him under no conditions was it okay for him to beat his girlfriend. Just because life got hard for him and things weren't going his way, it does not excuse his shitty actions. My son stood up and asked me why I couldn't have his back or take his side. I got up and told him in what way was I supposed to have his side. That I, of course, would in no way support his actions. That he was full of shoot for even having the audacity to think that I would support him beating his girlfriend. Each time I tried to give him advice or anything related to self-improving, he would get angry. Things continued to escalate, and I told him that unless he got his life and himself under control, he was not allowed near his sisters or my home. He continued to say that even now I only cared for his ex and not him. I told him to not play the poor victim, and that he made his bed, and now he has to lay in it. He cannot continue to blame others for his actions, much less think it was okay to do what he did. He was no longer a child, but a grown man who made his choices, that every choice had its consequences. I asked him for the things his ex told me to grab for her, and he told me that he broke them and showed me where they were. They were indeed smashed into pieces. I told him again how ashamed I was of him for being like this and told him that he needed to get help, that he needed to take control of his life again, and that he needs to change. If he continues to act and do things like this, he will end up in jail or dead, that he has to pull himself together for his sake. He told me to go frick myself, and so I did. I picked up his ex's broken things and put them in a bag before I left. Am I the idiot? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I missed a lot of details and didn't mention everything as I was trying to get the most important details out. I will answer any questions or concerns. I'll try. Edit. My daughters said hello, and they also thought it was funny that I would be on this platform asking for opinions and judgment. Also, his ex is doing well, and her recovery is going well. Edit number 2. I want to clear up something that I said about my nose and barely noticing. I meant I noticed a few days after the incident. I'm sorry if that was misunderstood. Comment 2. Honestly, your son sounds messed up, and that sucks, but you did well. I know people don't condone violence and whatever, but he'll live and remember the way he felt forever. So maybe he'll think twice before hitting his next girlfriend, or, if he has any, his children. I wouldn't be able to see him getting into another relationship down the line and relax. I'm sorry this happened to your family. Now for the update, thanks for the support on the last post, it meant a lot. Now let me fill you in on what's been happening. After the last visit with my son, I thought things couldn't get worse. I was wrong. 2 days ago, my phone rang and it was him, crying, saying he needed me. I rushed over, thinking maybe he'd finally hit rock bottom and was ready to change. But when I got there, the scene was like something out of a crime show. His apartment was trashed even more than before, and there he was, sitting amidst the chaos with a duffel bag stuffed with cash. He'd robbed a store at gunpoint. My own son, a robber. I felt my heart sink and my anger rise. I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to turn him in right there, but another part, the father in me, couldn't. I told him he had to return the money, that this wasn't the way. He laughed, said it was too late, and that he was planning to run. I tried to reason with him, to pull on whatever heartstrings he had left, but he was determined. In a moment that will haunt me forever, I helped him. I don't know why. Maybe it was fear, maybe it was love, I can't tell. I drove him to a motel, gave him some cash I had on me, and told him to lay low. I felt like I was betraying every moral I had, but I couldn't let my son be caught. I drove home in silence, feeling like a shell of a man. The next day, my ex called. She'd heard about the robbery, and somehow she knew I was involved. She threatened to go to the police if I didn't. The shame was unbearable. I had to face my daughters, tell them what their brother did and what I did. They looked at me with such disappointment, it cut deeper than any knife could. I made the hardest decision of my life. I went to the police, told them everything. They found my son, and he was arrested. Watching them take him away, I felt a mix of relief and despair. I'd turned in my own son, but maybe, just maybe, this was his chance to turn things around. That night, my ex came over. She had a look in her eyes I couldn't read. She told me she was sorry for threatening me, that she was just scared. I wanted to be angry, to tell her she had no right, but I couldn't. I was too tired, too broken. I forgave her, even though it made me look weak, even though part of me screamed not to. Now I'm sitting here trying to piece together a life that feels like it's been shattered. I don't know what comes next, but I hope somehow we can all find a way to move forward. Thanks for reading. My parents made me pay for everything I broke as a kid. But when the neighbors' kids trashed my new car, I made their mother pay up and keep her thieving son's secret. When I, 18-year-old female, was little, my parents always made me pay for things I broke. If I broke one of my toys and wanted a new one, I would have to buy a new one with my own money. If I broke something of theirs, I would have to pay for it with my own money. If I didn't have the money, I would have to do chores to earn it. For my 18th birthday back in November, my grandparents got me a brand new Infiniti. It's a very nice car and I love it. My parents, whom I still live with, said that they will pay for the insurance, but if I get a scratch on it or something, I'm paying for it myself. On Saturday afternoon, I went out to my car to find that it was covered in eggs, paintballs, and someone had thrown a rock at the car, which left a dent in the hood. I took pictures of everything and reported it to the cops. I knew immediately that it was the kids next door, both boys, I think one is 14 and the other is 12. But I don't talk to them, so I don't know, who damaged my car. Why? Because the rock that was thrown at my car came from their yard. Also, there were a whole bunch of paintballs that hadn't exploded in our backyard on their side of the house. I'm guessing they were shooting the paintballs at our house. And when that didn't work, they decided to go for my car. I also always hear explosions coming from their yard, which always startles me. My dad and I took one of the paintballs and the rock and went over to their house. The older of the two boys answered and said that he didn't see anything, but his brother had just gotten a paintball gun and he and his stupid friend were messing around with it. But he didn't see them, so he didn't know. My dad gave the kid his number and told him to have their mom call him. She did, and she and my dad argued for several minutes. She denied that her kids had anything to do with any of it, and said that her son didn't even have those types of paintballs. So she's refusing to pay for any of it. My dad said that if they're not going to pay, then we will sue them. However, My parents are now saying that they don't want to sue them because it isn't worth it, and they will pay for the damage to my car. I told them that I appreciate them paying for it. However, I nonetheless want the neighbors to reimburse us. Not so much because of the money, but because of the values my parents instilled in me. If you break something that isn't yours, you replace it, and especially if it was done on purpose. Those kids need to learn that they can't go around breaking other people's stuff. My parents are saying that they don't want to start a war with the neighbors, even though we own our house, but they rent theirs. And if we really wanted to, we could report them to their landlord, who's actually a retired cop. We had a huge argument in which I told my parents they are hypocrites and are letting the neighbors get away with a crime. My grandparents, who gifted me the car, are solidly on my side and have even said they'd pay for a lawyer. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. You can't enforce the discipline of someone else's children, and neither can your parents. Unless you can 100% prove that the children did it, then you're very unlikely to win a lawsuit, which is also why no one was legally held responsible when you reported it to the police. And even if you were able to get the mother to pay, what would you do? Demand that she make her kids pay instead of her paying, because that's how your parents dealt with you. And then she'll tell you to get fricked because they are her kids, and she disciplines them how she wants. Dude, just be glad that your parents are willing to pay for the damages. Also, your parents are not hypocrites for not being able to enforce someone who isn't their child to pay back and what they don't. Your parents would be hypocrites if they broke something of yours or someone else's and then refused to replace that item. Comment 2. Have you checked to see if any of your neighbors have doorbell cameras? Because if this happened to me, I'd straight up go from house to house and see if anyone caught anything on camera. You said that you know that the rock came from their yard, but you don't actually know that. I'm sure the paintballs did come from that kid and his weird friend. But again, unless you have evidence, there's not much you can do. Your dad knows this, which is why your dad is just trying to smooth things over by paying for this himself. You're not the jerk for expecting people to face the consequences of their actions, though. Now, for the update. Thanks for sticking around for the update. So after all the drama with the car, things just got crazier. I thought the worst was over, but boy, was I wrong. A couple of weeks after the incident, I noticed the younger boy next door, the one with the paintball gun, started acting all weird around me. He'd avoid eye contact, and whenever I came outside, he'd scurry back into his house like a rat. It was obvious he felt guilty, but his mom was still playing the innocent card. Then, one evening, I caught him on our property, looking all nervous and holding an envelope. He saw me, nearly jumped out of his skin, and shoved the envelope into my hands before bolting. Inside was a bunch of crumpled cash, not nearly enough to cover the damages, but it was something. His note said he was sorry and that it was all his idea, not his brother's. I was fuming. I wanted to march over there and give his mom a piece of my mind, but my parents begged me to let it go. They said it was a step in the right direction and that we should encourage his honesty. I reluctantly agreed, but I kept the money and the note as leverage, just in case. Fast forward to last month, and things took an even wilder turn. The older boy, the one who'd answered the door that first day, got caught shoplifting at the local convenience store. It was all over the neighborhood gossip mill in hours. His mom couldn't deny that one, and suddenly, she was all about making amends. She came over, apologizing left and right, saying she'd pay for the car damages, and that she was so embarrassed about her son's behavior. My parents were eating it up, saying how everyone deserves a second chance. They were ready to drop the whole thing, but I wasn't. I still wanted them to pay, not just the money, but I wanted them to really understand the consequences of their actions. So I made a choice. I told my parents I'd handle it from here. I went to the mom and struck a deal. I said I wouldn't tell anyone about her younger son's involvement in the car incident if she paid for all the damages. She agreed, relieved to keep one son's reputation intact. I thought I was being smart, making her pay up and protecting my family from further drama. But here's where it all went sideways. The older boy, the shoplifter, he got off with a warning, and it seemed like he was turning over a new leaf. But then, last week, our house got broken into. The police said it was someone who knew our routines, and guess what? They found a pair of sneakers that matched footprints at the scene. They belonged to the older boy next door. Turns out he'd been scoping out our place ever since his mom paid for the car damages. He felt like we owed him for keeping his brother's secret and decided to take what he thought was his due. My parents were devastated, and I was in shock. I had made a deal with the devil, and it backfired. We had been robbed by the very person I tried to outsmart. Now my parents are dealing with insurance, the police are involved, and the neighbors, well, let's just say we're not on speaking terms. I thought I was doing the right thing, but in the end, I played right into his hands. I should have listened to my parents and let the whole car thing go when I had the chance. Thanks for reading this mess of an update. My friends ditch me for bringing my annoying brother to hangouts, so I spread rumors and watch them scramble to clear their names. Basically what it says on the tin, my friend group, mixed gender group of 15 to 17-year-old high school students, hang out after school most days. We walk or drive from school to a nearby park or cafe and just hang out for an hour or two before heading to our homes. We also do other activities together, such as movie night, D&D, and other stuff. Last Monday, a member of our friend group, Kirsten, 16-year-old female, brought her young brother Liam, 11-year-old male. The middle school is attached to the high school. She said it was only for a little while, and that her parents just needed someone to watch him in the interim while they sort out after-school care for him. We were fine with it, right up until the boy opened his mouth. Now, Liam isn't neurodivergent or mentally disabled that I know of. He's just insufferable. He only talks about Fortnite, Roblox, and sports, topics which no one else gives a single care about. We're all theater nerds and weebs LMAO. That would be fine if he could just sit quietly and let us have our conversations. But he got really angry at us when we wouldn't talk about the things he wanted to talk about. He got even angrier when we talked about things he didn't know about, books he hasn't read, shows he hasn't seen, etc., and then had an honest-to-God meltdown when someone brought up D&D. He called it Satan's game and called us all devil worshippers before calling his mom crying to come pick him up. He was also super rude to the waiter the entire time. Kirsten later apologized profusely and explained that her parents are fundamentalist Christians who still think D&D is satanic, and that they taught Liam these same values. She asked us not to talk about D&D around Liam next time. In response, we asked Kirsten not to bring Liam again. She said that she had to because her parents were forcing her, and this is where I'm probably in the wrong. I went behind Kirsten's back and arranged for me and the rest of the group to meet at a place we'd never met up before. Then we told Kirsten that after-school meetups were canceled until her parents had after-school care for Liam. We expected her to be angry, but she just sighed and said that she understood. On Friday, she somehow found out about our subterfuge and blew up at all of us in the group chat and in person. She yelled at us for cutting her out over something she couldn't control and for lying to her, and at me specifically for organizing everything and betraying her. I tried to explain myself, we all did, but she kept screaming at us until she realized she'd be late for class and left us sitting there like idiots. I feel bad for Kirsten, and I really wish it didn't have to come to this, but I feel like I did what I had to. Am I the idiot? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, you're the idiot. Not for setting the boundary of not wanting to have Kirsten if Liam is going to show up too, but for going behind her back. You should have been upfront. I understand that is a difficult conversation to have, but lying about it is a jerk move. She may have still blown up if you were upfront about it, but in that case, she'd be the jerk. Her being upset about being lied to by a group of friends is completely understandable. A group of people who are supposedly her friends straight up lied. Comment 2, you're the idiot. You should have been honest and told her that she will be excluded from the friend group hangouts until Liam's after-school care was sorted. Going behind her back and lying to her was an move and came to bite you in the back. It always does, so it's better to be honest up front. Learn from this and be a better friend in the future. You wouldn't want to be in Kirsten's shoes yourself, so don't be the who put her there. Now for the update. Thanks for sticking around after that last mess. So, here's what went down after Kirsten blew up at us. Turns out, Kirsten's meltdown was just the tip of the iceberg. The next thing we know, she's spreading rumors about us at school, saying we're a bunch of backstabbers, that we made fun of her brother, and even that we were bullying her. It was like a wildfire, and let me tell you, high school drama spreads faster than a viral TikTok. We tried to clear things up, but you know how it is. Once something juicy hits the rumor mill, truth becomes as rare as a calm day in a soap opera. People we didn't even know were giving us the side-eye, and our usual hangout spots became no-go zones. It was like we were suddenly the villains in our own story. But here's where it gets really twisted. One of our own, let's call him Mark, decided to switch sides. He went and told Kirsten he was on her side all along, that he thought we were too harsh on her and Liam. Mark had been with us since middle school, and now he was feeding her info about where we were meeting and what we were saying. It felt like a punch in the gut, a real betrayal. We found out about Mark's double-crossing because he wasn't as slick as he thought. He left his phone out, and a text popped up while one of us was nearby. It was from Kirsten, thanking him for the intel. We confronted him, and he didn't even try to deny it. Said he felt bad for Kirsten and thought we were being unfair. We couldn't believe it. After all the time we'd spent together, he just turned on us like that. So we did the only thing we could do. We cut him off. No more group chats, no more hangouts, nothing. It was harsh, but we couldn't trust him anymore. It was like removing a splinter, painful but necessary. The aftermath was a mess. Without Mark, the group felt smaller, and the whole situation with Kirsten had left a sour taste in everyone's mouth. We were a tight-knit crew, and now it felt like we were just a bunch of people who used to be friends. But life has a funny way of working things out. A couple of weeks later, Kirsten's parents finally sorted out after-school care for Liam. Kirsten came to us alone this time and apologized. She said she was under a lot of pressure at home and took it out on us. We talked it out, and it was like a scene straight out of a drama series, complete with tears and group hugs. We decided to give her another chance. After all, we'd been through a lot together, and everyone makes mistakes. But things were different now. We were more cautious, a little less open. The trust we had was like a vase that had been glued back together. You could still see the cracks. Just when we thought we could breathe easy, another bomb dropped. One of our teachers got wind of the whole D&D and devil worshipper nonsense and decided to start a morality campaign at school. Suddenly, our D&D nights were under scrutiny, and we had to defend a game we played for fun. It was ridiculous. We had to gather evidence, talk to other teachers, and get our parents involved to prove that we weren't doing anything wrong. It was a full-on campaign to clear our names and save our game nights. In the end, we managed to convince the school that D&D wasn't some evil ritual, just a bunch of kids using their imagination. It was a victory, but one that left us all exhausted and a little paranoid about what could happen next. So, that's the update. Betrayal, rumors, and a fight for our right to roll the dice. It's been a rough ride, and I'm just hoping for some peace and quiet for a while. Thanks for reading. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.